I'll read some, I'll talk some, and I'll finish in 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Fine. So, firstly, let's face it, the Ministers of Industry and Economic Development of Africa had met in Durban in October and adopted a plan of action for Africa's industrialization. It has gone to the heads of state. It has been adopted in January. It is the official policy, and it is an attempt to shift the continent away from the old dependency path of primary commodity exports and to move towards local manufacturing and beneficiation. Of course, the time was topsy-turvy. The first meeting of the ministers of industry was at the cusp where statistics showed Africa to be growing at 7%, almost 3% above the global norm. Right, so that was, but by the time the heads of state met, crash. So there's the recession, everybody is panicking in a sense whether this is achievable. But nevertheless, the crucial lesson of that growth, and it's significant, even if it's from a low base, has been growing at 7%, with certain countries in the double digits, and was that it was not only about the commodity boom that everybody's talking about. You can't explain Ethiopia through the commodity boom, nor Tanzania through the commodity boom, through not many of the countries through that. Yes, oil played its part. Yes, primary commodities played their part. And yes, South Africa was far lower than the rest of the continent. Okay, so that was happening. So the plan of action, the state that was ravished by neoliberal protocols is back in. Not supply measures, only demand measures are back in. Industrial policies back in. Enhancing production and enhancing its quality was in. Renewable energy was in. And the biofuel madness was stopped. And so on. And all the good things, in a sense, are more or less there. And the language was catching. It was up. You know, let's do something now. And the agreement that this growth has not addressed inequality. In fact, inequality might have increased. And therefore, this might be an elite kind of project. Might be true. But the argument was, unless the society moves away from the old imperial division of labor, society move away from that, there is no prospect of any growth. That was the key argument. So it's almost back to Lagos with shades of Bandung. And Bandung, in other words, is real. And one of the key features that correlates with economic growth is precisely Chinese, Indian, South African, and increasingly in the last 2 years, Brazilian entry into the continent and economic activity. So the question is, if we're talking about the Bandung, can China, Brazil and South Africa perhaps as a regional kind of hegemon, smaller than the others, a bit of, you know, the sideshow when it comes to the size of the others, do something about rewiring the world capitalist economy, because this is not the last collapse of the system, you know, as we know it. And here there's three questions that I won't answer here, but I answer them in the paper. The challenge is, can they alter the architecture of the world economy, which has been in existence since the days of high imperialism, with its distinct patterns of extraction, production, and trade? That they, of course, remember, are political elites committed to cooperative competition, who actually, and they're going to do the rewiring together with capitalist interests, parastatal interests, think tanks, you name it, they'll be there. They'll be doing it. You know, so can they do it? So one question. The second, can they provide an institutional framework to create these conditions for a sustained phase of this? And thirdly, can these embryonic arrangements point to possibilities for a more pacific era where vital redistributed results follow, and so on and so forth? And finally, in all of Africa, remember the Afro-pessimism of Arrighi in the New Left Review and of Castells, and how the continent was one black hole of maldevelopment entering the fourth world. Okay, it's very recent, these pieces. Arrighi's piece in the New Left Review about the African crisis agrees with Castells. You know, that is the case. And there it is, that little black hole. Something's going on. My answer is this in the first two questions is yes. The third one, I don't think so. It will be bloody hard without grassroots and social movement and class pressure. And the fourth one, yes, something can be done in Africa if we get smart about it. So I will not bore you with the details and the architecture of my argument and what I think about the Washington Consensus, and move to what is going on in South Africa, Southern Africa, and beyond. Very interestingly, Ari concluded in his Adam Smith in Beijing that very positive about the Beijing Consensus and its possibility, as Gillian was saying this morning, and the fact that a lot of these cultural and historic ties now are buttressed by economic interactions between those societies. So, what is the appropriate response to the crisis? We're thinking about government level, not mass movement, kind of working class levels. Because the current government policy marks a departure from neoliberal protocols, yes. The emphasis on supply-side economics continues, yes. But there are gestures the other way towards a more demand-driven economic trajectory, yes. As we all know, the devil is in the detail. If there is one lesson to be drawn from the way India and China have responded to the meltdown, is one of decisiveness. And we can go into detail about how the one responded, 567 billion into the infrastructural projects, and how India is responding at another level for this. But what is sure, we cannot go back to national Keynesianism anymore, and it would be irresponsible as South Africans to go there. In other words, to just protect our own as a response to this crisis. There is also a danger that we destroy our manufacturing basis at the moment, a trend that was very much with us during the first 15 years of our new democracy. And the current serious contraction of 8% in the economy means that we have to protect our industrial base cooperatively and with care, through careful regional and transregional planning. And through serious proactive measures, we need to move from a fiscal regime to a thinking one that does not just ring-fence public works expenditure in the abstract. So key to our recovery here in South Africa is a universal employment guarantee for all for 6 months at this stage. That is the only way forward, and we can come back to this. Big can become therefore secondary. We can guarantee that. We say we don't have the money, it's only going to cost us 88 billion. We have spent that kind of money before on other things. It can be done. And it's going to bring to people much more than big would have. So since South Africa hosts the industrial dimension of the African Union's work for the next 3 years, it needs to lead decisively and make a model of the SADC planning and implementation process, making sure that the action planning's institutional props are more than in place. So is it Africa's turn? Just to move to that. In a sense, I do not see why not. Yes, for this to be achieved, there are 8 preconditions. Number 1, they need to articulate the region's infrastructurally. Common renewable energy sources, hydro for instance for us, well-integrated railway and transport systems, telecommunication and informational pathway systems, and a seeming contradiction, a mega, well-articulated microfinance system. They move away, in other words, from peripheral disarticulation of the continent to something more integrated. Second, the relaxation of the impediments for the movement of people and goods within regions. Thirdly, a strong drive towards nutritional democracy. Fourth, a move in the customary areas from subsistence to sustenance, and an increase of the non-commodified social asset base of our communities. Fifthly, a system that of states that cooperate in the development of supply-side productive forces, the quality of labor power, for instance, appropriate technology, for example. Sixthly, a quick move towards articulation of regions, not to delay in turning Harare, for example, into Brussels in the region or something like that. In other words, start doing that. Seventhly, a joint IBSA China-Africa projects. And finally, the transformation of cooperative scholarship, building research cohorts around these issues at PhD and master's level will be primarily. The key quandary remains, can the above be done on a substantive basis, or will it be always another way of integrating an elite and its immediate layers in the world economy without much reduction of social inequality? But that is not a question of analysis, that's a question of struggle and the capacity of struggles to achieve the rates. That's it.